Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Today we're taking a look at the Premier Hunter build, specifically revolving around NUKING bosses. This is a build that you'll be able to take into endgame content, whether that's raids and dungeons, Pantheon 2.0 that's coming this summer, or the currently active Garden Games event, being the Rushdown activity that is literally all about defeating random story bosses from across the game. But of course, I'm not just going to give you a build that only does one single thing. Today's build will also focus on survivability and give you decent enough ad clear to actually get to the boss that you're trying to take down. But before we start, if you enjoy my content, you like builds, you like staying up to date with Destiny, you like Destiny, then please do subscribe. It'd mean a ton to me, and I'm trying to get to 50,000 subscribers before the end of 2026, and I quite literally cannot do that without your help. Also, for your sake, there are dim links and timestamps down below for your viewing and gaming convenience. Now, to begin with this boss baking hunter build, we're going to first take a look at our exotic armor piece. If you're a veteran hunter, then you likely saw this one coming, as our exotic of choice is Lucky Pants. This exotic is all about dealing hundreds of % more damage for specifically hand cannons. So, reading its description, it says improves sprint, slide, and airborne effectiveness while a hand cannon is equipped. For a short time after being drawn, hand cannons ready faster, are more accurate, and each hit against a combatant increases hand cannon damage. Now, taking a look at this in-game, let's use an iconic hand cannon like Ace of Spades. This isn't what's going to bake bosses in this build, but it's just an example. After readying our hand cannon, we get 5 seconds of the illegally modded holster buff. And during that time limit, each shot that we land will give us 1 stack of that buff. And what each stack does is it flat out increases our damage. We can see here, our base Ace of Spades damage is 97 for a crit on Carl. Then 10 shots later with the Lucky Pants buff, we hit max stacks and our max damage caps out at 530. That is a 450% damage increase. This damage multiplier is what we'll be basing our build on today, and with a lot more sandbox tools available to us, including the right weapon choice, the nukage is going to happen regardless of what enemy you face. With that said though, there's a little bit more to this exotic, and that's in the cooldown portion of it. There is no cooldown if we have 7 stacks or less of the buff. But if we get that or more, once our stacks run out of time or we swap weapons, we will get a debuff named Out of Luck for 10 seconds. This effectively just prevents us from activating Lucky Pants over and over by causing our exotic to gain no stacks while this debuff is active. So when we get to talking about annihilating bosses, this 10-second lockout does become a little important to take note of. Now moving on from our exotic armor piece, we have our weapon of choice to pair with Lucky Pants, which is equally important as the armor piece itself. And like I said, it is an Ace of Spades, but it's actually not even an exotic. In this build, we'll be using Uncivil Discourse. This special blaster that fires exactly like Forerunner is considered a hand cannon. It has a blazing high rate of fire and does a ton of damage since it does take special ammo. These two facts alone make it a perfect pairing for Lucky Pants, but as a legendary weapon, we also get random rolls. And the god roll here is, well, anything within the 3rd column, and then Frenzy or Precision Instrument in the 4th. And if you're a real grinder, then you can get a shiny roll that comes with the Accelerated Assault Origin trait and a magazine that reduces heat buildup, effectively increasing the magazine size. But I'll be totally honest, that stuff is just extra credit. All you need is a good base roll. But taking a look at how this weapon exploits Lucky Pants, our base damage is 290. Then as we spam shots into one target, our max damage comes out to 1,671. Which is so much higher. And one thing to focus on is how quickly this weapon builds stacks of illegally modded holster. Now if we take a look at the DPS and total damage granted from just one single magazine of this legendary hand cannon, we get a DPS of 3,500 and 17,000 total damage. That's like shooting 9 rockets. And that's without even activating our perks or buffing up our weapons further through the rest of our build, which is a massive part. So taking a look at our next big piece, we have our subclass, and the best choice is simply just Prismatic. This will give us max survivability and lethality. I mean, to be honest, I've made a billion Prismatic Hunter builds at this point. It is really good. So starting with our super, Golden Gun is premier option number 1. This super helps with boss damage and has some nice synergies to keep us alive. Our class ability is going to be Gambler's Dodge to refund our melee whenever we use it, and that melee is going to be Threaded Spike. This melee does a ton of damage, can hit multiple targets for some pretty good ad clear, and also debuffs enemy outgoing damage. even that of bosses, keeping us alive for quite a bit longer than we would without it. Our grenade is going to be grapple so that we can stay mobile, and because it actually does quite good damage itself. And then for our aspects, we're going to stick with an endgame hunter classic. The first is Stylish Executioner. This aspect says that it will make us invisible upon defeating any debuff target. It also says we get some other benefits like True Sight and increased melee damage, but we just want the invis. And looking at each source of invis in this build so far, Threaded Spike makes us invis, our grapple makes us invis, and then our dodge will too, and that's thanks to our second aspect being Ascension. This says that we can use our air move to propel ourselves upward and deal damage around us while making us and other players amplified. Endgame, we saw it score a kill, jolting enemies, which upon their death will make us invisible. But it also amplifies us, and Amplify makes enemies less accurate against us, while also giving us 15% damage resist. Our aspect options don't make us particularly lethal, but they round out this build, giving us massive survivability and sustainability. And moving on to the last bit for the subclass, we have our fragment options. To begin, we have Fast of Purpose. This fragment gives us some survivability that actually changes depending on our equipped super. In the case of this build, we'll have a golden gun equipped, so we get 5 seconds of restoration upon picking up any orb. And if you're not aware, restoration is constant health regen, which is extremely strong. After that, we run Faster Protection. This fragment gives us some more damage resist for simply being near at least 3 enemies, which is pretty much all the time, which means we're always just a bit more tanky. And then next, we run Facet of Hope. This will massively reduce our class ability cooldown when we have any buff applied to us. Our class ability gives us Amplified, giving this itself a nice clean loop. And then our last fragment is Facet of Dawn. This will make us radiant upon getting a hit with our Threaded Spike, and one Threaded Spike can actually make us radiant multiple times, but hopefully, as you know, radiant is a 20% damage buff to our weapons, while also allowing it to pierce shields. So, with all of that, let's now take a look at where our single magazine damage is for one little legendary hand cannon. This time, activating the perk Frenzy and getting radiant from our melee, our 1 mag DPS is 4,500 and our total is 22,000. But even this isn't where this build caps out. So moving on from our subclass, I quickly want to touch on other weapons to use in this build, starting with our kinetic slot. Having a weapon that can easily produce orbs of power is really nice, so you can make lots of special finishers for yourself. My choice here is multi-mock with attrition orbs. You can also do some really funky stuff with weapons like Crimson, but I'll show that off at the end as it's pretty niche. As for our heavy, I would either be on Tractor Cannon, the refurbished A499, or a sword. Tractor will flat out give us 30% more damage to affected targets, but it does require us to get quite close to our enemies, and the sword is just for movement, and the heavy sniper is pretty decent damage while you wait out the Lucky Pants cooldown. Next though, we have our armor setup. Beginning with armor stats, our main focus will be on weapons. This is because after we get 100 in that stat, our outgoing damage versus bosses is increased. Our second focus is super, so that we can regenerate it as quickly as possible. And then our third focus is on class, so we can keep our survivability up. But continuing in armor, we have our armor mods, where we have on the helmet a siphon for our primary weapon, a special ammo finder, and a special ammo scout. This is hopefully to allow us to spam as much hand cannon as possible. On our arms, we use 2 heavy-handed so that our grapple and melee will spawn orbs on a shorter cooldown, and then a focusing strike so that melee damage gives us a bit of class energy. And for the chest, we run 1 charged up with 2 resists for whatever activity you're doing. Then on the legs, we run 1 arc scavenger and 2 arc surges. This will give us a nice boost in our uncivil discourse damage. And then for the class item, we run a time dilation so our surges last longer, then a special finisher to make special ammo, and a powerful attraction to suck up orbs whenever we ascend or dodge. But now moving on from armor, the next and final step in this build is the artifact. And within, there really isn't a whole lot necessary for today's build. Really, it's just Dielectric for free bolt charge and healing from arc debuff kills. Usually this is going to be from Ascension, and then we can use Elemental Orbs Arc or some throwables if you want. There genuinely isn't a whole lot here, which is nice to say that this build is pretty future-proofed. But now finally, we have the gameplay loop. To quickly speak about what we do when not fighting a boss, just ascend when you have it and spam grapple and threaded spikes on enemies. You'll be going invisible, you'll have damage resist, and you'll get lots of healing from picking up orbs. But the main point of this build is to bake bosses. The way we accomplish that with this build is done very quickly and simply. be honest. To begin, if you have Tractor Cannon, apply that for a 30% debuff, and then simply throw your Threaded Spike to give yourself Radiant, which you can dodge to get it back if you don't have it, and then swap to your Uncivil Discourse and hold the fire button until you have to reload, or vent, rather. You're effectively stacking everything we have into these 6 seconds. When you're out of luck, you should use your super, and when that ends, you should try to reapply the Tractor debuff and then use your abilities and dodge to refund your melee. You'll likely find a couple seconds where you're not doing much, but popping Transcendence and spamming those abilities is a good time filler, or you can just use a 499 sniper if you don't have Tractor. But this is only going to last a short while, and once you are finished waiting on the Lucky Pants lockout, just do it all again. You melee to get yourself Radiant, and then you spam Hand Cannon. If you're in a team setting, you can get a lot more creative with how much you invest into your heavy weapon or your actual individual damage, but you'll find that one exotic armor piece and this one hand cannon is enough to kill most things in the game. And if we get really niche and quite in the game, you can look at this clip here, where you can pre-stack Lucky Pants with a weapon like Crimson to really crank it. But do note that this is not a normal build that I would say you can take into any activity. But that's it though. I think that's it. Thank you for getting this far into the video. Remember that I'm trying to hit 50K before the end of the year. Can't do it without your help. Also remember there's a dim link down below. That way if you want this build, you like how it looks, you can grab it for yourself. And with that, I hope you have a really great day, and I hope to see you around.